Jason, great to see you, my friend.
Garth, amazing. Highlight of the week. I hope our listeners feel the same. And I have a feeling they're going to feel like this was a highlight of a podcast.
I think so too. So before we jump into it, I wanted to ask you a question. What do custodians, educational leaders, and river rats all have in common?
You know what? They all have to feel like they matter. I think that's what they all have in common. This podcast is going to cover all of those and then some. What do you think? What's a high
Yeah.
level, Garth? What do people have to look forward to in this one?
Well, in this, we learn about the power of mattering, the power that a leader can lend their organization to noticing, affirming, and feeling, making people make sure people feel needed as part of their organization. And in that, Dr. Zach Mercurio talks about his experience interviewing janitors and reframing the purpose of their role, how educational leaders can make space for the power of mattering. And he talks about an amazing anecdote about the Ann Arbor High School River Rats hockey team, which had zero injection of talent, but went from 0 wins to being one of the top programs in the country, all because the coach asked kids, "Who are you? What do I need to know about you?"
And throughout this podcast, Zach tells us about how important it is that we're relentless in the pursuit of mattering. And I hope that for our listeners, today is the beginning of that relentless pursuit. I think people are going to love this show, Garth. Should we get to it?
Yep, let's get to it. Enjoy, listeners. You
Enjoy
matter
this.
to us.
You go.
Lassoing leadership, sharp and true. Beard's Book Club got wisdom for you. Turn the pages, let the stories flow. Unpacking lessons as we grow.
Hey there, Lassoing Leadership fans. We are back with the podcast, and we're at what's at the heart of empathy and leadership. Ted Lasso in real life. We are into season 3, which is Beard's Book Club. It's an evolution from season 1, where we looked at every episode of Ted Lasso, and season 2, where we brought guests on to help us unpack the ideas of leadership. Now in season 3, we're really digging into the research that underpins a kinder, more compassionate way to lead. And I think this world needs more of that. And so I'm super excited to get into the conversation. I'm Jason Rogers, and I'm here as always with my fellow host and podcast co-conspirator, Garth Nichols. Garth, good to see you again, buddy.
Hey, Jason. Awesome. It's great to be here. This season has given us the chance to sort of step back, learn from authors and educators, and today is no exception. We are joined by someone whose work is reshaping how leaders think. It's reshaping how my school works. It's reshaping, I know, Jason, how your school works, how we talk about purpose, belonging, and meaning in everyday life. He is a researcher consultant. He is the author of The Power of Mattering: How Leaders Can Create a Culture of Significance. We're thrilled to welcome Dr. Zach Mercurio. Zach, before we get too far into this podcast, take a minute, introduce yourself to our listeners.
Yeah, so there's 2 parts of my life. One is I'm a researcher in this place called the Center for Meaning and Purpose. So we research what makes life and work meaningful. Now, a key ingredient of a meaningful life and meaningful work is experiencing that we're significant, that we're seen, heard, and valued by others. So I'm researching and teaching on what makes life and work meaningful, but then I'm out with leaders actually testing those things. I think what's really fun about my work is everything that I've codified, I've actually seen an actual human being leader do. So I learned so much from the field of actually observing and then tying it back to research. The rest of my life is I'm a U8 soccer coach. I have a I love the laugh. Every time I say that, people either laugh or there's just like this look of profound compassion in their eyes. I'm a U8 soccer coach. I have 2 boys, a 10 and a 7-year-old. Them and my wife, we live in Colorado. We have a couple of dogs. We have a pet snake. And so I get to study leadership, practice leadership, definitely. And really
and then
try
get
to
tested on it by your 2 kids.
On it by my 2 kids constantly, and by every kid on my U8 soccer team.
Zach, I love that, because for so long, I identified as a U12 baseball coach, a U14 baseball coach. Like that's like it's so and then I coached basketball for a long, long time and still do. So
I'll
I
go into
appreciate that.
I'll go into a speaking engagement or a facilitation opportunity, and someone will say to me, Zach, just want to warn you that, it's been a tough year, this crowd, and, it might be difficult. And I'm like, no, 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 no. You don't understand. If you have not run a U8 soccer practice,
I love it. I love it.
you do
All
not
right.
know what I'm prepared for.
Well, Zach, we are prepared for you today, and I can't wait
Yeah.
to hear how, this book and these ideas of mattering manifest in your world, U8 and otherwise, and in our workplaces, schools, leadership, and otherwise. So let's get right to it. For many of our listeners, they will be familiar with this notion of mattering because Garth and I have been talking around it for the better part of 3 years. But you make the point that feeling valued and adding value is a basic human need for everybody. Why do you believe that this is so foundational for both individuals and leaders and organizations? Why is mattering the secret sauce in some respects?
It is a primal survival instinct to be important to somebody else. I mean, from the moment everybody who's listening right now was born, the first thing that you did was you sought to matter enough to someone else so that person would keep you alive. You wouldn't have a podcast or you wouldn't have listeners if at some point we all hadn't been significant enough to another person, enough so that they would keep us alive. I mean, think about that drive to be significant, to be important enough, to have someone see us, to have someone pay attention to us, to have someone hear us. To have our presence and absence mean something to just one other person. So I would argue actually it's not just a need. It's first and foremost a survival instinct that is as primal as our survival instinct to eat and sleep. Now, as we grow up, as most fundamental survival instincts do, the instinct to be important to another person evolves into the psychological need to feel seen, heard, valued, and needed by those around us. And when that experience is met, so when that instinct to be important to another person is met, we experience what psychologists call mattering. And mattering is the belief that we're significant to other people around us. That comes from two major factors: feeling valued and then knowing how we add value.
You bring up in your book this notion of feeling significant time and time again, and the fact that wherever you're at is not the same without you, and you bring an incredible amount of value to it. I'd love to hear you, Zach, expand a little bit more on how that manifests in the workplace or even with adolescents. So many of our listeners are either leading schools or working with adolescents, but how do we breed that level of significance where people, really own it?
I think to care for anything and to care about anything, you have to deeply understand it. So understanding how mattering works is important. Let's take those two sides of mattering, feeling valued and adding value, that were theorized by Professor Isaac Prilatensky, who's an amazing researcher. We add value once we feel valued, not the other way around. This is very important because for so long we've educated people, we've led people with this subversive individualistic tone that someone should be valued once they add value.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get the accolades, once you achieve, once you get the good grade, once you perform, then you should be recognized. But interestingly, psychologically, the opposite is true. People need to feel valued in order to add value. And here's why this is especially important in education. When we see, hear, value another person and truly value their uniqueness and reveal to them that which they may not see in themselves yet, and we actually make them feel that this moment wouldn't be as good without them, they develop two beliefs that drive performance and all other behaviors. Those two beliefs are self-esteem, which is the belief that I'm worthy, and self-efficacy, which is the belief that I'm capable. Those two beliefs, I'm worthy and I'm capable, the number one predictor of both of those, research shows time and time again, is not sitting in your room reading a self-help book, chanting to yourself, I am enough. It is actually getting verbal reinforcement from others. Time and time again. What's in our environment helps to either sustain or destroy what we believe. And so when we're in environments that show us the evidence of our significance, from leaders, from teachers, we start to believe that we're significant, and we develop the confidence we need to add value. The more we add value, the more we see the difference we make, the more we feel valued. And the result in school and in work is motivation, resilience, well-being. All of those lagging indicators that we say we want are usually the result of the leading indicator of feeling significant. I think this is also important because a lot of people say, how do I get my students to be more confident? How do I get my team to be more confident? How do I get my employees to be more confident? And the research is clear on this. We don't develop confidence on our own. We develop confidence because we know someone has our back. We know that we can try, fail, experiment, take risks, and learn because we know we already matter to someone as a person enough that instinct to matter, that survival instinct to matter, is not going to be threatened by what I do or what I don't do. And this is why decoupling someone's sense of mattering with what they do or don't do to you as a person, as a leader, as a teacher, is so important to develop true sustained confidence that people need to try, fail, and experiment and take risks and learn, which is what education is about.
Yeah, that's amazing. So let's take this a bit deeper now. The power of mattering distinguishes mattering from similar concepts like belonging and what you talked about a little bit earlier here. So it's not simply being included, it's being essential. You say mattering is actionable. It's not a vague feeling. It's measurable. It's a measurable relational experience that leaders can cultivate. Can you talk to us a little bit more about mattering and its connection to EDI work and belonging work?
And this is sometimes tough for people to hear because mattering requires that people have the interpersonal skills to show people their significance. So for example, I'll use a school recess example. Belonging is being picked for the team, right? It's feeling welcomed and connected in a group. Inclusion is being asked to play in the game. It's being able to take an equal, equitable role in a group. But mattering is feeling that the team wouldn't be complete without you. Mattering is feeling significant to individuals in that group. I can be a student in a classroom and feel that I belong. I can feel that I'm included, but not have no one notice that I'm an older sibling and I'm a caretaker for my younger sibling because my parents work 2 jobs. I can feel that I'm included and feel that I belong in a group, but never know what's missed when I'm gone. I can feel included and that I belong in a classroom, but not have anybody be able to point out my unique gifts relative to other students in my classroom. Or you abstract this up to teams, right? So what's really important about this is you can do a belonging or inclusion intervention programmatically and theoretically by creating some norms that we belong and show representation and provide equitable access. But the only way to cultivate mattering is to practice the interpersonal skills of showing people their significance and then scaling those skills and teaching them and expecting them of your students for one another, of your team members to peers, and of you consistently as a leader or teacher to the people that you influence. So it is an interactional intervention, and there's really no shortcut.
I was going to say, like, roll this tape back a couple of times because that's how you create something as actionable.
Yeah, it's an interactional intervention. I mean, you see this in the employee engagement work. I mean, engagement is at its lowest rate than it's ever been. And Gallup just released this worldwide. About 7 out of 10 people, including in the public service sector, including in education and healthcare, are emotionally uninvested in their work. Right. I think this is especially important in education, where you have a job that matters, but many people don't experience mattering in their job, which is a key distinction. And what we're finding is that there's two data points in that engagement survey that should be eye-opening for everybody. Just 39% of that sample of 15,000 people said that someone at work cared for them as a person, saw them. Just 30% someone could name their unique gifts or strengths relative to others and invested in their potential. Just 30% indicated they could strongly agree with that, right? So things like this engagement crisis at an employee level or a teacher level or any school leader level is not a disengagement crisis. It's a mattering deficit. The same is true in schools. I mean, you see whether it's toxic behaviors or whether it's students withdrawing or not engaging or students not attending school to begin with. There are 2 things that happen when we feel insignificant. We either act in withdrawal, we don't show up, we quiet quitting, for example, is an act of withdrawal. We stay silent, we withhold because we have no hope that we can, will, or matter, or will matter, or we act out in desperation. I mean, everybody listening who teaches adolescents knows that the number 1 predictor of childhood bullying behaviors is an attention deficit in the home. So if I don't get attention, if I don't feel seen, heard, and valued, I will focus on some locus of control, which is power over another person, probably in my school, and say, I won't say this, but my actions will say, hey, I matter more than you think. A
Yeah.
lot of acts of violence, a lot of acts of, a lot of bullying acts, a lot of loud acts. Martin Luther King Jr. said that protest, for example, is the language of the unheard. The language of the unseen, the unheard is these grasps for significance. I mean, imagine the absolute panic of a child who reaches out when they're born and finds no one. I mean, so many people in the workplace and in our classrooms are facing that same stress of insignificance.
I love how you
Is that
reframe. I love how you reframe that. This is a mattering deficit and not an engagement crisis. And it's almost like you are in this moment giving us like a call to action as leaders. And I was wondering, can you you offer a bunch of different strategies. One is the so that mindset. Another is laddering. Another is the cognitive job crafting. These are three that jumped out to me. Like, can you talk about one or maybe all three if we have time? But like, how can those help us as leaders combat this mattering deficit?
Well, let's take a step back and answer a question for ourselves. I mean, think if you're listening, think about when you most felt that you mattered to someone else in your work or in your life. The chances are you're not thinking about a big action. You're not thinking about a grand gesture. You're thinking about very small interactions. I mean, this is what we find when we interview hundreds of people and survey thousands of people and ask them, when your leader makes you feel that you matter, what are they doing? They don't talk about awards banquets, the free lunch, the break room, the take a day off message because I know things are hard. Those are big gestures, but they actually don't foster mattering. Mattering is built through small interactions in which someone, a school leader, remembered that a teacher was struggling with a particular situation in their classroom, and unprompted one week as they're walking in the hall says, hey, I just wanted to check in on how that was going and what you needed from me. That is the practice of actually seeing somebody. So when we ask this question, we've been able to distill it down to 3 practices, which some of the practices you mentioned, Garth, fit into these. The major practices are people feel that they matter when they feel noticed, when they feel truly seen, and they feel truly heard. The second is people feel that they matter when they feel affirmed. This is not feeling appreciated or feeling recognized. Appreciation is showing general gratitude for someone's presence. Recognition is showing general gratitude for what someone does. But affirmation is showing them specifically how their unique gifts relative to everybody else makes a specific unique difference. You mentioned the so that mentality, right? One of the things that we in our first study, we interviewed school cleaners, university janitors. And we asked all of them, what's the most meaningful part of your job? And I remember this one janitor, her name is Susan. She said, it's when I clean the university dormitory bathrooms after the weekend. And I was a PhD student at the time. And I was like, that sounds gross. What do you mean? And she said, well, every time I go into that bathroom, every time I cross that threshold, I say to myself, I'm cleaning this bathroom so that these kids don't get sick. Right? People who believe that they matter over time and have leaders that help them believe that they matter tend to develop a so that mentality. They can link whatever it is that they're doing with its inevitable human impact because they believe in it. But she was also on a team with a supervisor who relentlessly showed them the evidence of their significance. Yeah, one of the people on her team, her name was Jane, and Jane recalls to me how she was struggling. She wanted to do anything else with her life than be a janitor, and the supervisor brought her into a break room and gave her a dictionary and said, just read this definition of the word custodian. Read it out loud. And she read it as a person responsible for a building and everyone in it. And he took her around the building and started pointing out students and saying, hey, this is someone's precious child. I just want you to remember that. You're here for them. And he was relentless in this. And, she told me that moment actually changed her belief systems about herself, gave her the confidence, remember, self-esteem, and the ability to know that she could add value, that self-efficacy. And she's been at the university for over 30 years, but it happens in those moments. And then the final one is feeling needed, feeling that you and what you bring to the table, what you bring to the classroom is indispensable and irreplaceable. Jobs and skills can be replaced, but a human being and their unique purpose, strengths, perspective, and wisdom can never be replaced. So great leaders, great teachers make sure people know what would be missed if they were gone.
Zach, I've had a long practice in my own work of showing gratitude. So my practice, end of the day, I write 3 notes of gratitude to somebody in our community. Unfortunately, we've got several thousand people in our community, so there's no shortage of people to say thank you or congratulations or you did this really well. And I found that many parts of your book spoke to gratitude and the power of gratitude. And so I wonder if you can give our listeners just a little bit of a thought around the importance of gratitude, not only for the receiver, but also for the giver. I thought you had some interesting ideas there.
Yeah, gratitude is a skill and an art. So when it is delivered well and when it is delivered specifically and from an impact-centered way, it can dramatically change and alter a human being's view of themselves. When gratitude is just given as a blanket thank you or good job, it really is just about as powerful as never having said it.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the research. And this is important to understand because it's a skill that we can learn. So when you're writing the thank you notes, when you're giving gratitude, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. One, anytime you're going to say thank you or good job, make sure you name the unique gifts the person gave you. And I'm saying gifts they gave you. We find that there are 4 gifts every human being brings us. They bring us their strengths, what they love to do and what they're good at. They bring us their purpose, how they impact and improve the moment. They give us their perspective, how only they have learned to see the world. And they give us their wisdom, what only they can teach us, because only they have lived their life. So naming those gifts, I noticed that you demonstrated a lot of creativity in that meeting. I noticed that when you were in the room, people's demeanor changed, right? And then describe the impact that those gifts had on you or somebody else. I noticed that when you shared that idea that people just lit up and they were talking more after you said that than when they weren't. And I just want you to let you know, when you speak up, everybody's better for it, right? Those are the moments of specific gratitude that we found can change the trajectory of people's careers, their lives, keep them going. I mean, I am astounded in our interviews when we ask people like to describe moments of mattering. They will describe like words that a teacher wrote on the top of a test that say, I hope you become a writer. And that person end up being a journalist, right?
Wow.
From like 6th grade. I'm astounded at the right words at the right time can completely alter our trajectory. And so instead of saying thank you or good job, make sure you show people the difference they make and how they make it. And the research is very clear. When we do that, we actually start to see the difference that we make for people by giving them that gratitude. It's like a boomerang effect. And we can actually start to see our impact right in front of us. We create in our environment the evidence of our significance by showing others. So it's a win-win situation. But I will say this, John Templeton Foundation found that about 90% of people say they feel grateful for someone in their lives, which is pretty obvious. But just 30% say they told them in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of good intentions. The problem is that we don't have a lot of good practices.
And it's amazing when you can open up space to make those practices part of the larger organizational practice too.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna indulge myself for a second here and just say I went on an amazing trip with some of my high school buddies, like not a few months ago, and it was a big celebration. And we went we went south out of the country. And one of the things that I tasked everybody with was to come up with a toast. And they had a morning slot or an evening slot. And it was an act of mattering. It was like, why have we chosen each other? And it was beautiful. It was a wonderful occasion for us to actually have those formalized moments. And at the end of this incredible trip in this beautiful part of the world, doing amazing, incredible things, what was the highlight for everybody? The toasts.
I think that's a great lesson.
The words.
That's a great lesson because I would say, people who create mattering for other people, right? People who are great friends aren't just great friends to people. They remind the other person why they're friends with them. And they never let that person forget that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Hey, listen, before the show, we were chatting just off the cuff a little bit, and you raised a term. You said, once you see something, you can't unsee
Hmm.
it. And I'd love for us to just review that with our listeners, because you were seeing something around this mattering deficit. Can you talk a little bit about once you see something, you can't unsee it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you an example from my own research. As I was finishing the book, I got asked to go work with an airline's cleaning crew, and from this lens of mattering. Now, before this experience, I had been like any other air traveler. When my plane stops at the gate, I would get my stuff and I'd bustle off the plane. But I went down to this airport, and they put on a vest and they said, "You're going to clean planes with us." And right when I put on that vest, I was invisible. And what I mean by that is when I went on the plane, I realized nobody looked at me.
Mm,
Nobody made eye contact with me. They brushed by me. And then I started to see that everywhere. These little acts of social ignorance. The janitor in the bathroom that's in your way that you never look at and say, "Hey, I just want to thank you for how clean it is." The trash collector who comes in front of your house and you wait for them to leave before you go out and get the trash bins because you don't want to have that interaction. Instead of going out and saying, "Hey, thanks, I'm glad you're here. This street wouldn't be clean without you today." Um, the little acts of social ignorance that we've gotten ourselves into by being so obsessed with ourselves that create these unintended moments of not mattering. Can you imagine?
mm,
After I came off that plane the first time, I said to the supervisor, I said, "This is every day. I mean, all day that these people are rendered invisible, and then we're expecting them to go home, raise families, participate in our
mm,
society." So I've been researching this for the last 10 years. I embedded myself with a group of janitors. I remember being in a break room with a group of janitors, and I remember a student walked down the hall. They threw a piece of trash. It hit the trash can, and they just looked at the janitors and walked by. There are these so just as we talked about, as mattering is created in small interactions, we find that anti-mattering is also created in small moments. One of the interviewees that we interviewed, and we were asking what not mattering felt like, she said, "It just rakes on me. It makes me feel worthless. Why do I bother?" But it's small moments. But here's the hope, right? The hope is that this is all avoidable. This is all avoidable. Make eye contact with people. Thank them for being in your life that day. When you're checking out at the grocery store, instead of just brushing by the clerk, say their name. Say, "I know life is hard and I'm really glad that you're here." My 7-year-old is a great example of this. When he sees the trash collector, he's out there waving, and instantly that trash collector changes their whole demeanor. It's amazing how good children are at making people
mm,
feel seen.
mm.
And I think we need to rediscover that curiosity and that astonishment that there are other people in our lives that make our lives possible. And we need to start taking captive and make sure that in our next interaction, we're making sure that person feels seen, heard, valued, and needed. So that's what I mean. When you see it, when you can name it, it's very hard to unsee it. And you'll start seeing it all around you. But I think that's good in a way, because then you can teach it to others. You can raise that awareness.
Like, wind the tape back again. You said rediscover the astonishment and recognition that there are people in your life who make your life possible, and they
Now,
matter.
That's what we do. That's
Yeah,
what community is.
yeah,
now,
yeah. It's
Garth
beautiful.
and Zach, this will be a little podcast magic here. I'm going to bring this all the way back to U8 soccer, Zach, in two ways. One, every time we go to a soccer match, we have a professional team here in Calgary. They're not bad. My boys have now been trained. They're 7 and 8 to thank the security guards as we leave, and they always walk up and shake their hands and say thank you for. And you should see the look on those folks' faces when two little boys are coming up and shaking their hands as they leave. Back to soccer as well. This whole thing is about Ted Lasso. We're not going to ask about Ted Lasso being a great leader, because I think we know what the obvious response would be from you, Zach. But I do recall a story about a hockey team that really is Lasso-ish and ascribes to mattering here. I'm wondering if you could share that with our listeners, and the impact there, and maybe even how that's impacted your own coaching as a revered U8 soccer coach in your own world.
Yeah, the Ann Arbor High School River Rats were a high school team, a hockey team. They were ranked in almost dead last in the rankings of U.S. high school hockey. They actually hadn't won a game in more than 365 days. That it almost became a point of pride how bad they were. So some of the students on this hockey team, they would actually wear T-shirts that said 0-20, which was their record at that time, and they would wear it to like a school dance. I mean, they were proud of how bad they were. And a former player of the high school actually got hired. His name was John Bacon to try to turn this thing around. And the first thing he realized was that he had to make them feel seen again. He had to make them feel worthy again, make them feel like they were enough, that they were capable again. And he wanted to get to know them as people before players, he said. So the first thing he did was he actually had them do this questionnaire before their first team meeting. It was about all of their hopes and dreams, their aspirations. It was all personal things about them. And it was very odd and countercultural. But when he got to the team meeting, only one person turned in the questionnaire out of the whole team. Later, one of the players said, we did what we thought was expected of us, which was to fail and fail epically. So he spent the next few hours at that team meeting actually going around and having each person share their name, but then their life story and what was important to them, do the questionnaire in real time. And he spent the whole time at the team meeting getting to know them. And then he would go around and recite things that he learned about each one to show he was serious. The next Monday after practice, after that meeting, everyone turned in their questionnaire. And it's a really good lesson because for people to care about anything, they have to first feel cared for. And he said, I proved to them that I was serious about this. He would go up and down the aisles on the bus rides to games, and he would talk to them about all of the things in their life. He said, if anybody wanted to talk to me after practice, after a game, the answer was yes, always. I don't care where it was, parking lot, hallway. If I had to drive somewhere to meet them, I would go meet them. He would show up at their other sports, even when sometimes their parents didn't show up because the games were right after school. He would show up for them every time as much as he could. And that team ended up only having 5 losses the next year. And then 2 years later became ranked in the top 5% of high school hockey in the U.S. Nothing changed from a talent level perspective.
Yeah.
All that
changed. Call in new players, right?
No, what changed was that he made sure people felt cared for first and trusted that the care would follow. And again, this goes all the way back. People feel valued once they add value. I mean, people add value once they feel valued. And the more they add value, the more they see how they're valued. And that cycle is the upward spiral that happens.
Well, Zach, this is incredible. And I know people are going to want to not just read your book, but find out more about you. I know you've got zachmercurio.com, and you've got also some videos on there too, like a 2.5 minute video talking about people and their stories of mattering. Where else can we find your work?
Yeah, so powerofmattering.com, but then also one of the only places that I'm especially active in real time is LinkedIn. So it's actually me on LinkedIn. I use it. I interact with people. There's great dialogues that are happening with leaders from all different spheres and occupations, which I think is really helpful to learn from. So you can find me there, Zach Mercurio on LinkedIn.
Awesome. All right, Zach, this has got to be one of my favorite podcasts of all time. Thanks for being on our show and bringing this to our communities. I think it's really important and it matters, and it's going to make our schools better through and through for the kids that we serve and for the families that we serve. So thank you on behalf of myself and everybody else in our community who's listening to this. And before we go, Zach, can you send us off with our Ted Lasso inspired sign-off line? Over to you, Zach.
Yeah, keep leading the Lasso way.
Right on.
All right.
Zach.
Thanks,
everybody.
Thank you, Zach.
Thanks
everyone. Thanks, Jason.
Coffee, grab your seat. It's time to learn, it's time to meet. Garth and Jason setting the tone. Leadership lessons to take back home. Lassoing leadership, sharp and true. Beard's Book Club got wisdom for you. Turn the pages, let the stories flow. Unpacking lessons as we grow. Keep leading the lasso way. Together we'll grow stronger every day. So plug in your head bonds and